Good evening, everybody. I hope you're doing very well on this Tuesday evening in May, at the tail end of May. In the UK recently we've had a heat wave, or coming to the end of one, and it's surprising how much heat debilitates people. So I'd had the whole weekend being a bank holiday planned to paint the kitchen, and Dad got a chest infection, so that was called off, but it just made everything so much more difficult. And even now it still feels quite warm, even though it's clouded over and it's supposed to be raining. But yeah, it's just a reminder that under certain circumstances what seems simple is no longer simple. Now, the plants needed watering. My brother's put some plants in, done a fantastic job at my parents' garden, and even water them was hard work. It's like an oven out there, and it really does make you think about all these people in other countries that they don't have the climate we have over here, and maybe global warming in the future will make it even warmer, and that's bad. And you could argue it's good because people have to travel to Spain or other further parts to get good weather. But the consequence of global warming, and when I looked at one of the charts they used on the weather, since about 1950 and 2020, the highest peak has raised by 4 degrees. Now this may not seem a lot, but Earth is like a pot, if you like. The more fire added to heat added, the warmer the planet gets. And it was also interesting. I was watching Simon Reeves' documentary on the Americas. Fantastic program. I really like Simon Reeves' presenting style. He's absolutely fantastic, honestly. And he was saying that we're down from 6 trillion trees to 3 trillion. Now you think, well, that's probably loads of trees. Yes, there are still quite a few trees, but in one of these countries they'd learned to actually work by restoring the forest, which I think is fantastic. I mean, it's such a simple option to do. I mean, you may argue, people may say, well, people need land for food and stuff like that, but equally we need the trees to keep the oxygen in the world. And yes, seagrass and other aquatic species of plants will help out there as well. But it's funny, after decades of just pillaging the earth, people are now thinking, hang on a minute, we need to not do this to make it more sustainable. And I think it's good that people are starting to do this. I mean, I saw another example of an area that took this, looked like a desert, like a rocky landscape you might find in parts of America. Over 20 years they turned it back into like a forestry woodland area by planting loads of trees. And it's good because it brings biodiversity back to the land that's there. And what also prompted me to do this video is my brother, who's 43 tomorrow on the 28th. He's been over helping today. He bought some plants over, surprise from my mum and dad, has put them in. He's done a fantastic job. And it really got me thinking about nature. I don't understand the difference between one type of plant and another, unless they're obvious. So I know what a daisy or a tulip or a daffodil is, but if you give me a little piece of green leaves in a little tub without checking the label or waiting until they grow, I have no idea what the names are. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate nature. I do. I think it's fantastic. And I was saying to somebody, I used to have quite a bit of depression years ago, and the one thing that I found that really helped me wasn't medication. Yes, I'm on meds now for mental health, but what I found really helped was walking in nature, just being out in nature. It's absolutely fantastic. When you look at how nice it is out there, and how green the plants are, and you see the animals, and it's brilliant. And I think we've got a good planet. I just think we need to keep pulling together to make it even more better, not just a few countries, but get all the big players on board. I mean, it's like you look at the UK, we're trying to get to net zero, but if you look at bigger countries like China, America, all India, all these other countries that are still building coal-fired power stations, and you look at the size of the UK and the density of population in those other countries, it's shocking. I think, yeah, it's a good idea that we all drive electronic vehicles and build wind turbines. I'm not being sarcastic, but I just think that there's a better option out there, and that's hydrogen powered cars, because yes, there's explosion risk under certain temperatures, but so is gasoline. If gasoline is compressed and heated up enough, it will explode. It's just they manage it slightly differently. So, and yes, you could argue that hydrogen's a gas, gasoline, it's still liquid as compared, so probably takes longer to combust, it's not so impactful, but I just think hydrogen's the way forwards. I mean, there's loads of air and water everywhere, and if the only vapour is water, then it's ideal. I mean, you're effectively just putting water back in, and there's ways you can extract the hydrogen from, separate the hot water into into hydrogen oxygen. There's ways to do that. And it's like there's like nuclear power plants. There was a guy saying years ago, I read this in an article, that we use uranium, refined uranium, for nuclear power plants, but there's another substance called theron that actually has no radioactive properties but still allows us to create nuclear fuel. So, but there's no incentive to use theron. Why would you spend all that money on using those plants, the swapping over to theron instead of uranium, because people want weapons? I don't know how true this is, but I think the nuclear power plants are a side venture from creating nuclear weapons, the atom bomb and all of that. And I just think, why does anybody need a nuke? I mean, why would anybody create such weapons of mass destruction to maim and kill each other? I just think they should de-stockpile or deactivate all the nuclear weapons. And it's a tricky thing as you look at things like Iran and the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, and people I don't think really want nuclear war, but some people might do. Some people imagine it'd be like the Walking Dead or some kind of zombie outbreak where they can run around and do what they want, but society needs laws and rules, because otherwise it would just be chaos. It would. If the police and the army and all hospital staff just disappeared tomorrow, say there was a big event, a rapture or something, where they all disappeared, society would be chaos. But I do believe within human beings there would be another form rising from that. That'd be a government. And that's why the Wild West was called the Wild West, because it was lawless. It was just like everybody was in it for themselves. Land, money, I can't think of the word, but they pillaged the land and they basically took everything. And it's sad. I mean, you look at things like Native Americans and how they were ousted by the British and all the other, Chris Columbus. Eventually they took rule over it. But I love those whole sort of theory things where you look at things from another perspective. And what I mean by that, imagine if there was a way that you could see an alternate reality where the Americas was never conquered. Would they be at the same level as what we are now? And then you talk about things like the slave trade. It's horrible, don't get me wrong, nobody should be sold into slavery. But, again, I'm not agreeing with this, but what I'm trying to get to is, if you think about this, would there still be the migration in the sense, would America be so multicultural unless certain bad practices happen? I'm not agreeing with slave trade. I mean, yeah, the people may have come over by themselves. You look at like Titanic, and you look at like the Irish going over to America, settle up, the Scots, people thinking, well, life's pretty rubbish in the UK, I'll go settle over in America. Yes, that wasn't through slavery, but it's an interesting one. I think, would society be as developed now if it wasn't for sacrifices made by people? of different places, and I just don't honestly know. Like multiculturalism in the UK, I've got Muslim friends, I've got friends that are atheists, agnostic, but we still get on. I don't think, oh, that person's into Islam, I'm going to stop listening to them, stop talking to them, because Christianity teaches something different. But don't worry, I'm not going to go on too much about Christianity. But yeah, so I just think it's a shame that we have to get weapons out and try and kill each other, wipe each other off the face of the earth. It really is, because human beings are so much more capable. And another alternate reality, imagine if we stopped fighting each other years ago through the moon race. We'd have been on Mars decades ago, honestly. We would have been there 20, 30 years or more ago. Or we'd have had a moon base by now. But because of political ways and changing governments, and it's taken a lot longer, and I just think it's so sad that we have to fight each other as opposed to laying arms down, helping each other out. And I think David Cameron had the right idea that people think, oh, the government should do this, that and the other. They've got stretched resources, they've got an Asian population, they've got more people on benefits now than what there was 10, 15 years or more ago, and they're trying to make ends meet. I'm not saying I'm a political person agreeing with all the people in Downing Street, but what I'm trying to say is that David Cameron with the big society. I mean, you rewind the clock back to the 50s or 60s, people helped each other more out. There was more neighbourly environments, and people would do things people know with no cash involved, or they might trade stuff. And it's a shame there's not more of that today. I mean, when I do certain bits, like with my art, I don't expect to make money off it. I just do it because it's a hobby. I really enjoy creating art and having my own spin on things. Sure, it may not be the most polished, but I enjoy it. And like I say, when I share it and people like it, if it makes them feel better, then that's fantastic. And I think what I love about art is a conversation piece. And maybe that's the problem where people just turn to hating each other as opposed to looking at the good within someone. Like, imagine if more people shared art, or there was more musicians that, I mean, people do, don't get me wrong, there's things like Glastonbury, there's art galleries and all that, but just sort of more people into that sort of thing. And I see these events that are taking place on LinkedIn, you see the photographs, there's some people who are really good at art. I'm thinking, why don't they take it up as a hobby or do it more? Because it's fantastic, it's such a relaxing way to do things, and it does help your mental health, relaxing with art. It honestly does. And or playing guitar or playing the piano and stuff like that as well. They're all things that really help you to feel better. Or even take a walk. I mean, I've never been much of a gym person. I'm not a massive fan of the gyms. I just find them very boring. You're stuck on a treadmill for 20 minutes, stood watching somebody else on the treadmill for 20 minutes. And I'd rather just go for a walk in nature, and it's just so much better. It's healthy for you because you're not in an air-conditioned gym where there's germs that might have some kind of fever or something like that. Still ignore not going to the gym and go there and spread the germs about. I'm not saying there should be germ or there's nothing wrong with it, but what I'm trying to say is that nature's better because you're breathing in fresh air. You're seeing people, you stop, you talk to people, and you really enjoy it, or some people do. And it's one takeaway I took from COVID. If you look back at the pandemic, how friendly people were to just see each other because they've been locked away for so long inside the houses. Like even just seeing somebody down the street, I personally experienced that as well. Like, when we were able to go out house, but it was still sort of isolation, people are just so friendly. They're just like wanting to talk, wanting to say hello. And also the other good thing to come out of the pandemic is all the people cleaning the environment up. I mean, it just spurs something great. Like there's the spawning wombles, I think they're called, that clean the areas up, and all these people that do it for them, not for themselves, but do it for other people. Do it for themselves to help other people, I mean by that. And yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating. I think that's what the big society idea David Cameron's on about, that why is it all government needs to step in and spend money doing this, that and the other. Yes, you could argue it's what you pay your taxes for. Quite rightly you could argue that. I completely understand, but is it always right for the government to do those things? I don't honestly know. Maybe they need to spend the money on something that will help people in the long term as opposed to quick fixes. And the ban on social media, they've tried it in Australia, but it's not quite worked, or the kids are finding ways around it, which is true. You could use a VPN and bypass all the British security and go onto American websites and look at stuff you shouldn't do. Yes, you can. You could get a VPN app on your phone and it'll let you figure that out, but there's ways around this. Having worked in the industry for over 20 years, there's ways to bypass what they put in. And yes, you could stop it by blocking the server IP addresses, but then somebody sets something else up, and it's like the dark web. I've never been on it. I've heard about it. What you can buy: guns, drugs, alcohol, people, bad photography. And what I mean by that is wrong images, like explicit videos and stuff like that. And it just sounds horrible, but there is a people out there that will buy this sort of stuff. I'm just thinking, is that a bigger problem in society where people feel the need that they have to feel bad gratification to feel better? Kind of like EastEnders, they're always arguing, trying to kill each other. And my mate said this years ago that it makes him feel better about his life because his life is not that bad. But maybe making somebody's life better isn't about feeling better than somebody else who's also feeling bad. Is about doing things within your life that make you feel better in the first place. Deal with the source as opposed to just coping. And it's kind of like a lot of these drugs that people get given and tablets to keep them well. I'm not saying don't stop your meds, don't go stop saying you want to stop. Be guided by medical professionals. But you have to argue that, do half these meds make you feel worse or better? Do they flatten you out, or do they make you more normal? I mean, my brain has always kind of thought outside the box, a bit different, maybe more ADHD or autism. But to be honest, it's one of the things that I've realised that in life it's kind of like, well, you have to adapt to certain things. And I just think social media bans are talking about it in the UK, but I just think people find a way around it. I'm not saying don't do it, but yeah, you heard about the horrible kid that died, died horribly through an online suicide challenge. That's education, and the job of the education has gone from the parents to what kids consume on the internet. They're asking AI, they're doing this, that and the other, whereas years ago you would be guided by your parents, and maybe parents, I don't know, just don't want to deal with the hassle of it and say, there you go, here's an iPad, go and watch something on YouTube for 2 hours. Is that irresponsible parenting, or are they struggling as parents? This is the thing that's a bit of a grey area. And I think parents do a fantastic job of raising children. It must be difficult, and I think, yeah, it's something that some people get the opportunity to do, others don't, but it doesn't mean it's a be-all end-all. I know people who are happily married, they don't have children, they're absolutely fine with it. They're not thinking, oh, we've got our kids to connect us together. I think if they're happy doing what they're doing, that's up to them. But yeah, so going back to the ban on social media in the UK, yes, they could block certain IP addresses in the UK. Yes, they could do certain things to stop people getting on these websites, but as somebody said to me, it's not as simple as that. Because what about people who may struggle to get out of the house? Not if you take school away from it, a child has got a debilitating illness, and how would they cope without that contact? They may be stuck in the house, and the only people see is their parents or a carer, and it makes them feel connected, part of society. So technology is a double-edged sword. I've said this for years. It's kind of like there's good things, there's bad things. Well, anything has that. Kind of like when the Industrial Revolution come along, and people say, oh, it's going to put all these people out of work, they're not going to do this, not going to do this, they're going to lose all the jobs. the steelworks. Look at the steelworks in Scunthorpe. The government are about bailing out, but part of me feels as horrible. I'm going to put my hands up. The horrible is to say this. Society is changing, and if they can have an electric arc furnace that is better and greener for the environment, we need to think about the bigger picture as opposed to the 200 or 300 people, however many is at Scunthorpe Steelworks. That is a bigger picture, and I think like being a person in charge like a prime minister, you've got to make those difficult decisions. It's not a popularity contest to see how well you're doing on socials, to say, oh yeah, I'll reach that policy and I'm doing fantastic on socials. Right, great, we'll have more of that. And that's what I think's lost a bit away in the politics in the UK. People then just say, well actually we're going to introduce this, we're going to move to electric arc furnaces, that's happening, we'll retrain you where possible. But it's happened like the Industrial Revolution. People probably lost their jobs over that. But people recovered. There was new industries, new technologies come along. People retrained. And it's the same with AI and software engineers. We could be living in the future in 5 to 10 years' time or further afield where AI gets that advanced that generally why would people write code manually? I will still continue to do it because I enjoy coding. It's quite a relaxing hobby, which may sound weird. You may be thinking something so complex and time consuming and involved is a hobby, but I've done it for so long and I'll just put my tunes on. But yeah, so the AI evolution and robotics is the next step in humanity, and it's going to cause problems with people's work, and we'll have to rethink how people feed themselves, how they go about doing things. And you've already seen it, all the influencers on social media, they get paid, some of them get paid to do that, whereas they'd be in the field picking plants or taking the rubbish out or working in a supermarket if they didn't follow a route of education. Yes, I'm not saying that not everybody goes down that career path or work pattern. Some people go to university, get degrees, do qualifications, fantastic. I know people that haven't done that and they've still got in certain industries. Because what says on a piece of paper is not just about doing the job, writing the code, it's about how you are as a person, how you fit into a team, because obviously it's a human environment. So yeah, so there's lots of interesting things in terms of the future for human beings, and I really hope we do get to the stars, and I really hope we kind of learn to settle our differences a bit more and learn to chill out, learn just a bit more music and try and see the better things in life. I really hope we do, because the world is a fantastic place and I really wish the best for people, I really honestly do. And I just think, yeah, there's certain things in this world that are horrible, and why do people do things? Maybe they're young, maybe they're under the influence of certain things, peer pressure. And until we can change that and talk about certain stuff that affects these young people in terms of how they see themselves as a feminist or or masculine or femininity, how they see themselves, and not toxic masculinity and mansplaining and all these things. I'm not knocking it, please. The way I'm talking, I'm not knocking certain things. It's probably a very real thing, and I think honestly that with it all, young people have lost guidance in life in terms of those father figures that would teach them how to fish, or they might help them to repair a bike, they might take them on adventures and things like that, and try and fill the childhood of such good, brilliant things. But now everybody's just on the mobile phone and zoomed in playing computer games. Yes, they're sort of socialising, but do young people lose those communication skills to live in the world? I mean, the world they see mostly is blowing somebody up on the battlefield or playing Halo. Or I'm just saying I'm not saying that these are bad franchises. I mean, I've played Halo myself. People have, and it does disconnect you from the world. So I think it's an interesting one, but I think people need to get more back to connecting with each other, not kind of hiding away in devices. It's not good for you. And I think find a group or talk to your friends and see if, even not go for a trip somewhere, like go on the train. People do it. I'm not saying that people don't do it, but we need more guidance for young people to have the right information in so they feel better, and there's food for the soul there. And I think that's, some kids lack that father figure, and I just think society is so manic these days that parents don't have time to deal with the kids properly, and they're stressed out, they're tired, and it's a cycle effect, and it's kind of like it goes in circles. It's like one generation leads on to another generation, etc, 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 and it's about breaking that cycle and changing things to make people live different lives. I'm not saying a communist government or socialist government like China or Russia or wherever, but I'm just saying that if we could have that ability to help more people become, especially young, I think for a prime example, this sounds really simple and probably hasn't cost the council a lot in Spalding, but for many years there was a big grass playing field, there was a basketball hoop on, and that was it. They built a skate park, an open one, didn't have to pay for it, and kids love it. They're out of trouble, they're not causing violence in the towns, they're actually engaging and playing with the friends, sitting about chilling out at the skate park. And that's a sad thing. Young people need things to do. They want to feel part of a tribe, they want to feel connected to the world, they want to contribute. And yes, you're always going to get good and bad kids in all walks of life. Try growing up in the 80s. And it's just absolutely fascinating when you look at all these kids, that there's so much potential in the younger generation. There honestly is. When you look at how the 80s was in terms of, or older, I used to like art, and you get like called all sorts of names because it wasn't considered a masculine thing. It wasn't considered a thing that a boy should be doing, and it's such a shame that people have to do that. But arts are fantastic. I think it's very inspiring, it's good for the soul, and I don't care what people think. If people don't find it a bit fussy or too fancy, let them get on with it. Connect with the people that really appreciate what you're into. Don't try to worry about trying to connect with people that want you to do what they do, which may be a bad thing. Just connect with the right people. And here's an interesting thought for you. People see all these people, all these connections on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and all the others. But realistically, people in life have 3 or 4 friends, true friends that they know. So if you're watching this, don't think, oh, well, I got 2 or 3 friends. That's fantastic. I've probably only realistically got 2 or 3 friends in life, probably 3 or 4, that we do stuff together. And I'm happy with that. I'm not thinking, oh, well, I got to see how this person's doing, that person's doing. But that's just fine. So don't feel sad because you haven't got hundreds of friends and you're not a social influencer and you've not got everybody liking your content. Do it for you as opposed to trying to please other people. Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've been rambling on for a bit. I've been testing my new camera out and camera arm again, and I just thought I'd share some thoughts for the evening. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this video.